New York, New York. Mary Belitho had never left Cornwall. She'd once gone on a bus trip to Truro, but hadn't really liked it, so had made little effort to go anywhere else thereafter. For her 70th birthday, Mary's daughter, Tamsin, decided it was time for her mother to go transatlantic. Flights booked, non-refundable. With a fair amount of grumbling and groaning on the drive to the airport, which was noted to have lasted the length of an EastEnders omnibus, the pair boarded what Mary described as a silly-sized thing, surely incapable of lifting itself off the ground, let alone us too. But before they knew it, they were away, landing 2 naps later in New York City. The bustling streets were full of life, bodies dashing and dodging one another, the smell of burnt street meat and caramelised peanuts, a bit like when the fun fair came to Launceston. Buildings towered above them, so high they touched the clouds and looked like they could topple upon them at any moment. All this made Mary feel quite queasy. She decided to head back to her hotel for an afternoon nap, leaving Tamsin to explore the sights without her. She needed to acclimatise, and perhaps see if there was a TV that she could catch EastEnders on. As she arrived in the lobby and made her way into the lift, she slumped against the back mirror, resting her head in her hands, relieved to have found a quiet corner to gather herself. "Hit the floor, lady," bellowed a voice from one of the 2 large American men who must have followed her into the lift. Mary instantly dropped to the floor, frightened and befuddled, holding her hands above her head. A reflex that must have come, she thought, from the BBC Two country and western film she watched on a Thursday afternoon. The 2 men, who towered above her, stared, dumbfounded at the wailing woman at their feet. "Lady, are you okay?" one of the men asked. Braving a tentative glance, Mary noticed the men looking at her with concerned, kind eyes, and found herself being gently helped to her feet. "Thank you," she mustered, dusting herself off from both the dirt and the embarrassment. "You're welcome," the taller of the 2 replied. "We didn't—" "I know," she interrupted, attempting to shrug off her mortification. The men pressed the button for the visibly shaken Mary's floor and helped her back to her room. As they trudged through the lengthy hotel corridors, the men had their ears chewed off with tales of a mystical land called Cornwall. They arrived at her room, checked once again that she was feeling okay, and parted ways. At the end of the week, Mary had recovered from that first day's events and grown to rather enjoy the vivacity of the big city. When it was time to bid farewell to her first venture on international soil, Mary and Tamsin went to check out and settle their bill. The concierge, however, shook her head, smiled, and handed them a letter. "Dear Mary, I am deeply sorry to have scared you in the elevator. I hope you've had a wonderful time here in the Big Apple. We are certainly glad you made the trip, all the way from Launceston. Sounds like a wonderful place. The big wide world is incredible, isn't it? See as much of it as you can. This trip's on us. Have a wonderful life. Yours, Will Smith." Yes, that one. On her return home, Mary framed the letter and hung it in her hallway for all to see. A reminder of the kindness she had encountered. She hoped that one day she could pay it forward. Mary was grateful for her late-in-life American adventure, which had opened her eyes to the beauty, generosity, and warmth that travel can offer. But she didn't have it in her to be doing it all over again. But why should that stop her seeing the world? She decided to make use of her dusty old attic room and open up her doors for the world to come to her. In the years that followed, she hosted guests from 32 different countries. Students, nomads, refugees, and more, all welcomed into her home, shown around her beloved Launceston, played an episode of EastEnders, and told tales of famous strangers in New York City. And so, despite rarely leaving Cornwall again, Mary experienced more of the world than most ever could.
This podcast was written and recorded as part of O Region's From the Horse's Mouth project. For more information about this and other O Region work, visit o-region.co.uk.